They were finally going to start to put this thing together, fix their rotations. And then the news broke that Markelle Fultz has informed the team via his attorney that he is not going to be practicing or playing in any games till he sees a shoulder specialist to try to figure out what is going on with him. We talked about the fact that he had a crazy shot going on, and then he went to this juggling volleyball style free throw, basically trying to trick his brain. So that basically he would try to stop that pump fake hitch that he had going on. We talked about last week. But Eric, this is turning out to be a complete disaster for this Philadelphia 76ers team. They trade up in that draft. They bypass Jason Tatum. Now they get a player that has basically forgotten how to shoot the basketball. We were talking before the show. It feels like that isn't even possible. But Markelle Fultz is lined up on Monday to see a shoulder specialist. But Eric, how long can the 76ers keep Fultz on the roster and continue to give him time with this all going on?
Well, now's the point in our show where I've got to give credit to two of our listeners who are right along with us, huge 76ers fans. So shout out to Jason Kaplan and Todd Peffer, because last year during the show, they were very against the move to bring in a Markelle Fultz, with Colangelo making that deal and passing up some of the other talent that was in the draft. They look like they were right on that, because Markelle Fultz is turning out to be an absolute bust. And with this head case, shoulder case, not sure what the real answer is on this. His shot is awful. There's all these goofy tricks happening at the free throw line when he's trying to take a foul shot. I think it's not only just something going on with his shoulder. I think it's something going on with his head. We're getting to the point of no return now with Markelle Fultz, and I appreciate that Elton Brand and the other Sixers managements are saying the right things and giving the young man his due in terms of, well, we'd like to see him succeed. We want to give him this time to get this figured out. But Justin, there may not be time to figure this out with Markelle Fultz, because there are some athletes, and you mentioned Chuck Knobloch last week, which I think is a perfect analogy. Even if we take it to golf, there's like an Ian Baker Finch who was a great player and then all of a sudden just couldn't putt anymore. And if you can't putt on the PGA Tour, you're not going to stick around. These things do happen to great athletes. Unfortunately, Markelle Fultz looked like a top pick, at least a top 3 pick coming out of college, and now he's a number 1 pick that looks like it's a absolute 100% complete bust, because I don't know how you get past not being able to shoot a basketball.
I think he needs to bypass a shoulder specialist, and he needs to just get in with a psychologist or a therapist or something, because it feels like whatever is going on with him, I don't see how it's physically related. It feels like it's all mental now. It's just like in golf. When you step up on the tee, if you think too much or you're thinking back about a shot that you hit or a missed shot and you don't have the right mindset, there's a chance you're not going to hit a very good shot on this one as well. And it just feels like now he's into his own head. He's thinking too much. He's trying to figure out ways to trick his brain. To me, that doesn't signify a shoulder injury. He's not doing that juggling act to fix a imbalance in his shoulders. He's doing it to try to trick his brain so he'll just go through with one motion. So I think at some point, Eric, Philadelphia they don't need this type of drama around them all the time. That at some point they might just have to cut bait, eat the cap money, and just take this off their roster and let the fans get over it. Because every time he comes out in the court and he does this stuff, Philadelphia is not the town that's going to be empathetic to him. They are irritated by this, and they're more irritated every time they watch Jason Tatum play. So I think the window for them, if this continues, they either got to just get him away from the team, out of the public view until he can get himself fixed, because to have the first pick in the first round of a draft that goes out and performs like this. I mean, can you imagine if Carson Wentz was out just like continually pump faking every time he dropped back and couldn't throw the football? They would eat him alive.
Well, Cleveland Browns have had to deal with that a few times with some number 1 picks. So I guess Philly would just need to call over to Cleveland and find out how they've dealt with it.
Well, maybe Philadelphia can call Cleveland and cut a deal with them. It seems like the Cavs are in the losing mode, so maybe that would fit their agenda for the rest of this year. So, Rick, let's talk some golf. This Friday after Thanksgiving will be the big pay-per-view matchup between Tiger Woods and Phil Mickelson out in Vegas. It's a $19.99 pay-per-view. Are you compelled enough to buy this pay-per-view?
Actually, I am. I believe that it's priced right, and I believe that it's going to be entertaining enough with them being mic'd up. And this is a rivalry that's been going on for years and years and years. Now, I know that Tiger's personality has changed, and even Phil has changed a little bit. There's going to be a lot more friendly banter happening, and let's not kid ourselves. They both want to beat the other because that's what they've wanted to do for the past 20 years. But yeah, I'm compelled to buy it because it's not that expensive. If it were like $59.99, like, a UFC thing or like one of these boxing things, yeah, I don't think I would pay that much. I would wait and just watch it on YouTube. But to see it live for $19.99, yeah, I think I'll do that. And I'm going to call the match for Tiger, Justin. I think you were probably going to ask me next what I think the outcome's going to be, but I'll just tell you right now, my prediction is Tiger at least, I'd say he wins on the 16th hole.
Well, since you answered that question, let me ask you this. It's kind of a weird starting time. Do you feel that's going to negatively affect some of the buy rates for this?
Oh, for sure. I think the starting time, and I even think the time of year that it is a little bit odd. I mean, to stick it, right in the middle of a Thanksgiving weekend where, here in the U.S., there's going to be a lot going on. I think what I'm actually going to do is purchase it, but have the DVR record it so that I can watch it later that night because I'm going to be busy when it's actually happening. So yeah, it's an odd time, and I think it could affect buy rates, but I think there's just other factors, too, that will affect the buy rate. Some people have said they're not even willing to pay $20 to see Phil and Tiger play, and I think some people are put off by this whole charade, but I think it's creative. I mean, would you watch IROC if they brought that back in NASCAR? I would, because it's something different. It's something creative and unique that draws your eyes to the television outside of their normal events. So I think this is good for golf.
I do too, and I think it's the gateway for more of these to happen, where you could have Tiger Spieth or Tiger and Koepka, other players that you could potentially bring into this if this does well or relatively well. Even the HBO special they're running, the 24/7 type of show, it's just such a compelling look when you get to kind of see behind the glass type of feel to this, a behind-the-scenes look, similar to what you see with Hard Knocks, just that type of coverage that you just don't get when you watch golf. We love having the mics on and hearing these guys' reaction, and now you're going to get to hear it unfiltered because it's pay-per-view. So they're not going to have to cut the mics or use the dump button or anything like that. You're just going to get to hear stuff unfiltered. They're going to have side bets going on. I think it's really compelling how they're doing it, and I agree with everything you said. I think the price is right. $20 to see this kind of happen, something completely different, that behind-the-scenes type of feel to it. And again, I just think it's a good chance to see how this performs and then open up the potential for more of this. And we've talked about it. I think it would be great for golf to, the next time, pick a younger golfer, pick a Fowler, pick a Spieth, pick someone else, and see if you get the same juice from it. And maybe you add in another element going on out there. Maybe you do a 9-hole round with two different guys, and then the winner plays Tiger in 18, something like that, just for more bang for the buck. They could move it along pretty quickly. It's not like a regular golf round where they could be playing behind someone and you have commercials and everything else that's going on. They could play this relatively quickly as well. So, yeah, definitely compelled to pay the money for it. I think they priced it right, and it'll be interesting to see how it does and what it opens up in the future for golf. So, Rick, let's talk a little NASCAR. They had their championship finales, and actually it was a relatively drama-free weekend, and as we predicted on the show last week, we thought all four of the championship contenders would be up front. That's exactly how they finished. 1 through 4 was all four of the championship contenders, but kind of a surprise. It's Joey Logano, who's the champion of NASCAR for 2018. But Eric, he didn't have the best season. I saw you tweet after the race something that mirrored what a lot of fans were saying, and a lot of fans have been saying, is that one race to decide the champion for the season devalues the regular season, and it takes some very impressive performances, especially from the big three, and it basically supersedes those for one race. I know a lot of times your argument is baked more into statistics. A lot of fans have issue because they simply don't like Joey Logano. If this was Dale Earnhardt Jr. or a fan favorite now like a Chase Elliott or even a Truex, maybe we don't get this kind of backlash. So is this something NASCAR needs to look at and change the format for how they decide the champion? Or is this reaction more about kind of a villain type in Logano winning the title?
I think it's a little bit of both, because I think you certainly have a segment of the population in NASCAR fans that don't like Joey Logano, and especially don't like the way that he got there. So they didn't want to see him win. Now, they would have a whole other segment that wouldn't have wanted to see Kyle Busch win either, a smaller segment that didn't want Kevin Harvick to win, and a fairly large segment that would have been very pleased if Martin Truex Jr. won. So I think just the fact that those four drivers and the personalities that were there, Joey Logano was probably the least popular to take home the championship on Sunday. It also wasn't a very dramatic race. Although the top four drivers were racing up front most of the time, you even had a late restart with, I think, 40 laps to go, where they were 1 through 4 at the double file restart, and I texted you and said, wow, this could be exciting. Nah, it really wasn't, because this is Miami Homestead. It's a 1.5 mile track, and they spread out too quickly. There was no beating and banging. There was nothing. There wasn't anything dramatic at all. And so once the guy gets out in clean air, he's gone. He had a little bit of time where maybe Truex could have caught him if the race was longer, but it wasn't. And that's what you see with these 1.5 miles. Once you get out in front, you're gone. So I don't think it was a very good finish. Now, here's the issue I have with it. NASCAR has gone so far down the road of trying to make their sport have a playoff environment like a stick and ball sport, like a baseball, a basketball, a football, where you have this certain amount of teams that gets into the playoffs, and whatever happens, happens, and you crown your champion. That's how it becomes exciting in baseball, when you have the Astros win the World Series when you thought it would be someone else. So that's how it can become exciting in NASCAR when you have 5 different champions over the last 5 years. Great. I understand that. However, you had Kevin Harvick and Kyle Busch combined for 16 wins out of 36 races. That's like 44% of the races were won by 2 guys, and neither one of them win the championship. To me, that devalues all of the regular season. Now you could say, oh, well, Eric, the Patriots were 16-0. They went to the playoffs and they lost the Super Bowl to another team. I understand that. But is it necessary for NASCAR to have those same playoff environment rules or not? I'm not sure it's really resonating with the fans. I think over the last 10 years, that's one of the things you've seen is a lot of the old school fans and a lot of the fans that were kind of on the fence in the middle. More people seem to hate it than love it. I think it's a bad look when you have no drama. You have a guy wins that really did nothing all year except for the last few races of the season to get in, and the guys that dominated the regular season weren't your champions. So how does that really gain fans for NASCAR? There's a lot more people in the stands wearing M&M's shirts, Jimmy John's shirts, and certainly Bass Pro Shops shirts than there are Shell shirts. That doesn't matter, because Joey Logano takes home the trophy because he was best on that day.
NASCAR has now put themselves into a very tight box, because they went from having the season-long points to then changing it to the chase to now into this playoff type situation. And they continue to make adjustments to how they crowned a champion, which you don't see from the other major sports. Yeah, the NFL has tinkered with the thought of adding another wild card team, and we saw baseball do something similar in the wild card, but they weren't changing the actual playoffs and the structure of it. Look, we saw quite a few years ago now, Tony Stewart had a horrible regular season. He barely got in as a playoff contender, and then he went crazy in the playoffs and was the champion that year. And really, the fans didn't seem to have that much of an issue with it then. It feels like everybody's sort of on equal footing. The one thing I'll say about NASCAR is they give all the drivers an opportunity. They know what's going on. They know the tracks that they're going to race on. They know what they can plan for. Now, Homestead's a track they only run at the end of the year. So should they change it up to that point to maybe move it to end the season in Vegas, the track that they run on earlier in the year, so everybody's got a chance to run there, and if they want to try stuff, that they actually come there with their best stuff versus coming to Homestead where they won't race that till this time next year. That could be something that needs to be looked at, but the NASCAR package right now and everything that they have going on, they just don't put good races on most of the time on 1.5 mile racetracks. Everybody talks about how great Homestead is, but you had a truck race, an Xfinity race, and then the Cup race. And Eric, they were pretty much boring races. Even the Xfinity race, there wasn't a lot of drama in that race. Reddick kind of got out in front there late in stage 3 and just drove off from them. It was basically the same type of situation. Joey Logano passed Martin Truex Jr. so fast that Truex Jr. didn't even have a chance to try to defend it or do anything. So definitely something that NASCAR may need to look at this point. Again, I feel like they've changed things so much if they continue to change it, they're just going to continue to drive fans away, because as soon as fans get used to one thing, they find themselves in a different situation. So I think the season-long points, as good as some of the cars were this year with Harvick and Kyle and Truex, they would have driven off from the pack so far. It probably wouldn't have been that compelling. The season could have been ended in Phoenix, for example, where they go into the last race of the year and nothing's on the line. So they can't have that. But it just feels like maybe they need to come up with a different system. One thing you and I kicked around was maybe they need to expand the playoffs and go to 12 races and then have the last 3 races be at 3 different kind of tracks with 4 drivers, and then accumulate either who has the best average finish or who has the most points.